Welcome to Ham Nation, episode 548 for June 7th, 2023. And how's it going, everybody? I am Josh KI6NAZ. Thanks so much for clicking on the Ham Nation here on the Ham Radio Crash Course. Appreciate you taking a bit of time on your Wednesday to hang out with us. And who is us? Well, let's say hi to the hosts and find out. How's it going, everybody? Good to see you again. All right, so we got Joe back. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing great. And I have a little bit more about the kit we mentioned last week. And we'll talk about some pot, actually a solder pot, that is. and we'll show a couple of pictures of what field day looks like here and talk about how we do it.
Very good. Gordo up there in the top right. How are you doing, sir?
We're okay, and we're going to talk tonight about field day, as well as the VHF-UHF contest with all the excitement there.
Indeed. All right. And Don, how are you? Looking good today?
I'm great. Thank you very much. First off, happy birthday, Ray Novak from ICOM.
No.
Oh my God!
And the reason why am I wearing a Yezu hat is because the nominees are in for the Newsline Young Ham of the Year Award, and Yezu is one of the corporate sponsors, along with Heil Sound and CQ Magazine, and also Radio Waves Antennas. So a little product placement, but anyway, happy birthday, Ray! We've got more from Tamitha Scove a little bit later on tonight. I think I just gave myself a headache.
Oh, well.
Let's go to this one over here.
If
Don't
you
knock
didn't give
yourself
yourself
out.
a headache, I would give you a headache. So
It's your turn.
Amanda, how you doing? I heard squeakies in the background, so the dogs are happy. You're looking like you're back, raring to go again, right?
I'm 100%. Well, I'm not 100%, but we'll say 98%. So thanks, everybody. Glad to be here. And I'm going to be, guess what? I'm going over field day points, bonus points that you get for having to do absolutely practically nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Fun stuff.
it is fun stuff, but you need to have a coordinator for this. So I'm going to be going over it and get you all the bonus points that you need to win in your class. So there you go. Also, I'll be paying attention to chat and taking questions and comments, and I'll be having some fun in the background there. So thank you. I think that means that we send it to Gordo now. Gordo, how you doing?
Well, we're doing fine, and I'm prowling through all my field day gear. And, I was working with Chip Margelli just 2 weeks ago, the day before he left.
Yeah.
And what an expert. He planned for everything for our field day VHF-UHF station. And delighted. As you know, the big headset's very, very important for a field day operation. I asked Bob Heil, I said, Bob, every so often we operate a field day station that does not have audio from your own transmit called monitor coming out. So he's now got a little jack for it on the dual headphones. I prefer a little lighter weight headphones. So the Heil headphones here will be what I'll probably be using. And then a foot switch. You can't beat a good foot switch. And Bob also has, Bob Hiles has a nice little press-to-talk, push-to-talk switch. So we're playing with all these pieces of gear that Chip had got all poised, ready for us. And at this point, let's take a look and see what field day is about. And we'll start off with Dave and Heather. What they do is they teach kids how to get into ham radio. And they say that they've got to go through the parents to get the kids started. And if you look at this, wow, this is a field day flyer in disguise. And Dave and Heather, which they've headed up Quartz Fest Ham Radio Get Together, they really have toured the country, and Heather's toured the world. And if you look at this and replay it back again, Dave and Heather out of Arizona really knows how to promote field day and make it fun for people to look at rather than maybe just a big banner that says field day. So they say take any hints that we've come up with here and use them. So there you go. A great way to get started in field day.
Gordo?
Yes,
how do we get Dave and Heather on here to let us know their passion about it?
Okay, if anyone would like to get in direct contact with Dave and Heather, if you'll send me an email,
Okay.
I will forward that on to a rather lengthy secret email address for them, and they will get your personal attention and vice versa. Send
Fantastic.
email to wb6noa@arrl.net, and I'll get it, and I'll pass that on.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gordo.
Good point. Well, for field day, you need a good antenna coax. And the coax is your connection between the world's best radio, the world's greatest antenna. But maybe, do you have the right coax? Oh, I know it's right. Somebody just gave me a big bundle of coax, and it's brand new, never been touched. Well, sometimes we break open coax to see what it's really like. This is typical CB radio in the old days coax. Look at that. That is the white dielectric you're seeing below, the very thin copper shielding. This coax would radiate probably at 10 meters, about half of your energy out of the coax, with the other half finally making it to the antenna. That's about a 75% braid maybe. Next one over, the center one on the right, I still see a lot of interconductor and the PVC type of dielectric, so that's a little iffy. Coax on the right is silver tinned copper, and not only does it have the silver tinned braid, but it also has an aluminum braid. That's not going to leak anything. So if someone offers you coax or you're checking out your field day coax, check it out. When no one's looking, just take a little nibble and see what's going on from that outside black covering. So coax, very important. If you have coax that has a significant dent in it, that's going to throw off the impedance a little bit. But with this particular dent, that was a wire tie, a little too tight, but I looked at it and the coax is still 50 ohm, nice and usable. The impedance changes if you really squash coax, but this one survived. This one did not survive. Look at this. We had a ham say, I've got about 50 feet of this and the connectors are already on. And look, you can see the green braid. Well, you know, years ago, the military actually had an infused green braid back in the 40s and 50s of their coax. But this is no military coax. This is coax subjected to way too much water. You're probably going to lose 85% of your signal coming out of this coax. And you can tell how good coax is from the center conductor to the braid by going to an ohm meter check and going to the very highest scale of R times 10,000 or 1,000, and make sure you don't see any connection. It should be an open circuit. And here, there's a lot of leakage with just a simple meter. Here was a direct short. What do you mean a direct short? I mean, the braid is touching the center conductor, and that's a foam dielectric. And foam is good. Foam is nice and flexible, but around moisture, the foam can absorb a little bit of moisture. So when you put together your PL259s, make sure that you got them nice and trimmed, which this one is just getting ready to get trimmed, and don't let that one nasty little wire strand cause a short circuit. And Joe will be talking, I'm sure, about this as he is the expert on soldering. But when you go into solder coax, if you got a little 25-watt iron, what do you think, Joe? Are you going to solder many PLs with a 25-watt iron?
No, I usually turn up the heat all the way, or I use a gas-powered iron on field day so that I can be anywheres and solder the connector.
There you go. And that's from the expert, Joe. Thanks. Well, this is my old Weller big 250 and 500, and it gets mighty hot, and that's what we're looking for. So the deal is you first trim, make sure, before I do any soldering, I meter between the silver tip and the gold-plated outside jacket, and I see no connection, so I know I'm good, not a short at that end. And we're going to solder not only the tip, and that one looks like it's got a little too much solder on it, but we also want to solder within those holes. And that's how a technician, Don, would know about this. Don's a Motorola guy occasionally, and he'll look at and he'll back off the outside shell. And what we're looking for is a nice little solder, and you really got to solder it well. And the way you tell if it's soldered well is you hold after it's cooled down, you hold the right-hand side of that connection and try and back off the little spacer, the UG 175 or 176. If that spacer backs out, you've not made a good connection on so a good clump of solder there, but don't get any on the braid or else you're going to start all over again. Then once you've got the PL259 on, you got to do the old thumb check. And with an ohm meter on the opposite end of this coax, it should show open. Then wet your thumb and put it over the center tip and the outside shell, and it should show a high resistance. And if you're all by yourself, at the opposite end, you can take a big capacitor like this, a big electrolytic, and put the other end across there, and then go ahead and check the connection. You'll see it go all the way to the right and then go down, go down, go down, go down to almost infinity. And that's indicating that you've got a good connection between the center conductor and the outside braid. And of course, what you want is a good connection, and this is called the SO239. It's the PL259 that screws onto this SO239. And with the right connection on the SO239, we're going to go ahead and go to the next slide, and bingo. And you want to make sure that it's relatively tight. Now, this one worries me. Look at the little adapter on the RG8X or RG58. See that it's not seated all the way? I bet I could turn that. And if I can turn that, it tells me I may have an intermittent braid connection. And you may say, well, it's just like the ground. Oh, no, that's half of your antenna carrying capability up to the antenna itself. Now, at the antenna itself, you don't want to have anything that is open to moisture getting in there and killing it. This is RG58U. It's silver tin. That's nice on the braid. And it looks like a flexible. That'll work okay. But out in the elements, it's going to deteriorate quick. So what you want to get is that stuff called coax seal. Used to come out of Reynoldsburg, Ohio. And the coax seal placed on that is a good way to keep the moisture out. And look at the tie. I've actually made a coil there, and that coil is going to help keep any stray currents from flowing back on the outside braid of the coax. So a little coil is going to do you well. And here's a nice connection again. And it is all nice and sealed up, so you're not going to get any water getting into that beam. Now, whenever you're measuring coax connectors, you got to make sure that the end of the coax, the other end that you're measuring, is not hooked up to anything. You can kill your radio by testing a PL259 with an ohm meter, and the other end is attached to your radio. It takes out on some radios the FVT. Or if you go to check it out and the other end is going to a balun, as we see here, this looks like a 4-to-1 balun or an off-center fed. No, it's actually a 1-to-1 balun. You will see it maybe show up as a short. So you can only check your coax out when it's not connected. And of course, being safe around coax, make sure no one's going to transmit when you're holding onto the coax. And week after next, we're going to talk about safety at your field day station. And this is the legendary Chip Margelli, K7JA, in action. Chip is so amazing. He can go from tuxedo to a certified climber's belt, go all the way to the tip top. Here he's operating, carrying on a conversation, having a can of Coca-Cola, and doing a little bit of CW. It's amazing. So we're going to hear more about Chip, but all I can say is we sure miss you, and we'll try and carry on your legend in 2 weeks and a half at Field Day. So it's going to be fun. Again, that's what you want to take a look for, is an exciting announcement about Field Day. And just the word Field Day doesn't mean much to just the general public, but you give them a flyer like that and you'll be set. So, Amanda,
Uh,
any questions?
Well, yeah, I do have some questions. And first, thank you for showing us Chip there. He's an amazing operator. Has won so many awards, and it's so sad to see him gone. I can't, I can't. I called Gordo, and I said, and I wanted to talk to Gordo, but Susie answered because she said that Gordo was on the air, and I just was so devastated. So I believe all of us were so devastated to hear that Chip was gone. So, Josh, what are your thoughts?
Oh, so I live in Southern California. I met Chip through Janet, and so I saw Janet all the time because I go to HRO all the time.
HRO addict.
Yeah, we
Yes.
all do.
So I was always kind of around Janet and Chip, and we would always bump into each other at the different ham fests, obviously, because Janet was sometimes working the HRO booth, and then, Chip would be around. And I didn't really put two and two together at the time, but, I'm talking to Chip, for years. And it was only much later, like when I started watching and doing more YouTube stuff, that I discovered, obviously the Jay Leno clip video that he was
Yeah.
the transmitter in that Morse code versus SMS message. So it's so sad, it was so quick. But it's been really amazing seeing all the people posting on social media, like their memories and pictures of Chip, because he kind of knew
Yeah,
everybody,
he
and
did.
everybody knew him,
Yeah.
and so he was just a great guy. So yeah, sad.
I know it's so terrible. We have Miss Janet with us still, and
Yeah.
I think she's going to continue on in the amateur radio world. But Don, what about you?
Yeah, I first met Chip in 1995 as a brand new ham when he was working for Brand Y. And he was also, as Brand Y is one of the longtime corporate sponsors for the Young Ham of the Year Award. Through Bill Pasternak, I met Chip. And, Chip was on stage with Bill for every Young Ham of the Year presentation. And then
Oh, great.
later on, Chip was with me on stage for several of those Young Ham of the Year presentations, not only with Yezu, but also with Heil Sound when he worked for Heil Sound, which was kind of funny because Chip is a dyed-in-the-wool CW guy and then
I
went to
didn't
work
know
for a
that
microphone
part.
company. It was kind of funny. But yeah, so I've known Chip since 1995, and I was just devastated. I got up one morning and I turned on Facebook and I see that Chip had passed, and I've been in a crappy mood ever since. And
Did you?
so
It was hard to believe, right? You were just like
it,
in denial
yeah,
about it.
it was. I immediately messaged Janet to see if it was true, and she must have been up early. She came right back to me and said, "Yeah, he died, the day before,
Oh, it's so
cancer."
terrible.
And the
And
sad
he
thing is,
hit
I
it.
believe he had only been like diagnosed, I think, in March, so it was
Oh gosh.
very fast.
Yeah,
So
Joe.
hopefully, I'm hoping that he didn't suffer.
Me
But
too.
but
Me
yeah,
too.
I
Joe.
love the guy. I just and just a giant in the
I
amateur radio hobby for
I think
sure.
that
And
everybody loved
great
him, and
Chip.
he was just such a fellow. Like
He
you
was
you
just a guy.
you couldn't you
Just
couldn't
he was
not like him.
he was
So
the guy.
yeah. Joe,
Knew
what about
everything, knew
you?
everybody. Yep.
I knew him since the late 70s.
The late
And
70s.
yeah, when I worked for a ham radio dealer here in Lincoln, and we applied through him to get dealership on Yesu, and he was the one who taught me how to tune up an FT 101 real fast. And I last saw him in late April in Visalia, and I'll be showing a picture when I get to my segment that I took in late April at Visalia when I last saw him. And his wife asked for some more pictures, and I sent her some. And she said the best way we could remember him is to kick ass on field day.
There you go.
I plan on
Absolutely.
doing that. I do plan on doing that. Well, thank you. Gordo, we do have some questions, but thank
Yes.
you. And I know this is really hard for you because you and Chip and Janet and Susie were so close. So I'm sorry.
My immediate thought when I heard that Chip had passed was, wow, there goes Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Oh, no, Gordo, you're going to make Thanksgiving continue, right?
Yes, we are. In fact, Janet
Yes.
said, you better make field day happen in 2 weeks and kick some butt. I'm not sure he said kick ass, but I know he did say kick butt. And we were there right up to almost the time doing PL 259s. And he was such a whiz with everything he did. So he didn't suffer much until the last few seconds when he sat down in his easy chair. Janet was there. His cat was there.
Gosh.
He closed his eyes, dreaming of field day. So everybody, make it happen.
Now
Send
you're gonna
Janet
make me
a
cry.
QSL card. KL7 Mama Father, KL7MF. Send her a QSL card and give an anecdote about some of the fun things that you and
We
Chip
will all
did.
do that, everybody.
Absolutely.
It was always fun to work you guys on Thanksgiving, and I hope to again.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep. Janet's going to be at the helm, I hope. And Gordo, to lighten things up. Sorry, you got me all emotional.
Yeah.
I have a funny story about a PL 259 soldering story, and it was at a field day when I was pretty much a newbie, and somebody said, I have to solder on this PL 259. Does anyone have a soldering iron? And I brought out that seriously 10-watt little.
I ain't gonna do it.
So yeah, he's like, I don't know what you just brought me, but this is not going to work.
Right.
I'm like, but I have a soldering iron. You asked for a soldering iron. I have one. And so.
But a
anyhow,
valiant effort nonetheless.
Right.
That's right.
I know. Because I have never actually put on a connector. It's
really?
it's never been my job. My job is usually like coordination and things like that. So I've never had to I have done the hard work. Like I have hammered in the stakes and things like that and guy wires and things like that for a field day. You know, give me the sledgehammer. I'm out there. I'm your girl. But
Handy skill to have.
When you walk around with that that soldering iron, they're probably like, you know what?
Yeah,
No.
no. They forgive me because I do the other hard work, and and I'm out there with the tape measure and I'm measuring out the Yagis and stuff to the right point and clamping down and things like that. But I'm just not a soldering person. I just can't do it. But anyhow, okay, moving on. Antenna question. Radiating feed line, leaky feeder, etc. Has anyone made an antenna with it? Possible to do like a bazooka? Gordo?
I think they have. And there's been some interesting designs off of that. And I continue to watch when field day hits and hear about other hams that are using just bizarre antennas. And Chip's most bizarre antenna up in Washington was a wet string. You hear, I must be using a wet string. As a matter of fact, I am. But he found out he needed salt water, not fresh water, for better conductivity. So you folks go out there and load up a wet string, and we'll work you on 6 and 2 meters.
Go with crimp connectors. Yes, thank you.
It's all about making
Joey.
whatever work.
That's it, and that's Bob Hiles. His whole thing is just throw out a wire and see if it works. Just do it.
Exactly.
Roger that.
If you have SWR, tune it up. If not, you sucked at what you did. Cut it down. Okay. Wow. Where?
I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so Gordo, how do you store your coax? What do you do when you're not using it? If you've got a couple rolls, how do you keep it safe and secure and all that?
Well, I wait to a nice warm day because there's nothing worse than trying to coil up some LMR 400, especially the very non-flexible type. And I'll try and do a video of at field day of coiling up coax. Janet Margelli coils it like this, very effective. I do one up, one under, one up, one under, but it's a real technique, so I'm always open for suggestions. But Janet can unroll 100 feet of coax with not a single snag in it. And so the old roll it like this and keep rolling, but it only works on a hot day. And I keep the coax in a dry area because you're right. Some coax can ultimately absorb moisture in the dielectric that may be foam.
That's great.
Tell you what you don't want to do. You do not want to wrap that thing up like most people wrap up an extension cord between their elbow and the crook of their thumb. You do not want to do that because you'll never get it untangled.
Well, no, it's not even that, but you you will put kinks in that, and I have done that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah. I've had my better half in the other room. Shh, I'm gonna whisper right now.
Yeah.
I have screwed up some coax because I'm like, oh, just wrap it up. And I did it just exactly like that. And there's kinks in it. And you don't, there's nothing worse. Josh, hear me out here. You know that there is nothing worse than kinks and coax. No kinks and coax. It's bad news. Don't let it be like your hose, where it like flaps over and like cuts off the water. If you do that, you're literally screwed.
You're done.
So, thank you, Gordo, for everything. We appreciate you. And this is part 1 of Field Day. Wait until part 2. Okay, so let's throw it to ICOM, shall we?
Aim higher and discover the world of SHF. Explore the world of microwave with ICOM's new SHF portable, the IC905. This all-mode rig covers 144 to 5600 megahertz, and with the optional CX10G transverter, 10 gigahertz. This portable also has a few industry firsts under its belt. The IC905 is the first radio to support the 5 major bands, VHF to SHF, a Power over Ethernet RF module for flexible installation, and is compatible with amateur TV in analog FM mode. Other features include large 4.3-inch color LCD touchscreen, real-time high-speed spectrum scope and waterfall display, easy digital mode settings, included high-performance GPS antenna, full D-Star functions, including DV and DD mode, and SD memory card slot. For more information about ICOM's amateur offerings, visit icomamerica.com/amateur. From May 19th through May 21st, hams can find ICOM at booth 2608 at Dayton Hamvention 2023 in Xenia, Ohio.
And again, as always, thanks to ICOM, the great people there, for sponsoring Ham Nation. Every time we go live here on Ham Nation, ICOM gives away a swag pack, which includes things like, T-shirts, hats, that kind of stuff. And to enter into that drawing, you go to ICOM/Ham Nation. The link is in the description for this video, and you click on that little Enter Now button right there. It'll ask you some things like your name, call sign, address. I believe you don't have to have a call sign to actually win the swag pack, so that's good. Go ahead, get in on the giveaway. We pick 3 winners for every episode, and then at the end of the month, they give away a radio. So pretty cool. If you'd like to get in on that fun, again, click that button. But the winners for this show, the people that basically clicked that button last time we were live: Philip G, KM4UTV, Brantley M, K5UDO, and Igor S, KN6ZEO. So thanks again to ICOM. We really do appreciate it. That means I have the honor here to throw it on over to Don, and he's going to tell us some more interesting things about, I don't know what we were talking about, but I'm throwing it over, Don. Here we go. I lost the plot. Hat change.
To make the birthday boy happy, Ray Novak, happy birthday. Yesterday was his birthday, and there you go, young man. Something just to make you happy. This is an old Dayton hat. This is when the robot and the Dayton girls in the bathrobes were walking around. So this is vintage ICOM hat from Dayton Hamvention. Yeah.
I like it.
Didn't get to go, but I did get a shirt because, I have people who get me things. Had to pay for it, but that's all right. Let's talk about news of the week from Amateur Radio News.
You got a shirt? You got a shirt?
Yeah.
Oh, now I'm pissed.
In fact, if you hang on, you'll see it right now. From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2379. This is Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, June 7th, 2023. What do you get when you combine 2 incredibly brave radio amateurs and 1 very small granite outcropping in the middle of the ocean? You get a very rare DX entity and a great adventure. Newsline anchor Jim Dameron, N8TMW, takes us there.
The big challenge is on. Our top story takes us to the uninhabitable granite islet in the North Atlantic Ocean known as Rockall Island, which is being activated by 2 amateur radio operators. Ed Durant, DD5LP, takes us there.
As Newsline went to production, two hams were on the air and the competition for contacts was predictably intense. It's a challenge for chasers around the world. For the hams, the challenge is even bigger. Emil Bergman, DL8JJ, and Nobby Styles, G0VJF, hope to break the record of a 46-day stay on the Rock set in 2014. The pair and their exhibition leader Cam Cameron plan to stay on the Rock for as long as 50 or 60 days and raise £50,000 for charity. This coveted DX is designated IOTA number EU189 and is a most wanted location. Be listening for MM0UKI and cross your fingers that they are listening for you. This is Ed Durant, DD5LP.
While we're on the subject of exotic DX, hospitalized children outside Washington, D.C. were given a chance to talk with an ISS astronaut recently on amateur radio.
Having fulfilled the first part of his space mission a few days earlier to arrive on board the ISS, astronaut John Schaffner, KO4MJC, got underway with one of his next goals, to share the joys and opportunities of STEM studies as an educator. On May 26th, he shared that view from space through a QSO with youngsters at the Children's Inn in Bethesda, Maryland. It was a telebridge contact that made use of a ground station in Belgium with the call sign ON4 ISS. The youngsters at the Children's Inn learned about life in space and got a closer look at to the way amateur radio can connect people. The Children's Inn provides a free residential environment to children and young adults who are patients at the National Institutes of Health as a means of reducing stress on the young patients and furthering the Institute's clinical research. With the help of ARISS and amateur radio, the youngsters also got a view of the great things that can happen beyond the bounds of planet Earth. This is Patrick Clark, K8TAC.
Staying up in the final frontier, two satellite enthusiasts recently logged a contact that they claim has set a new record.
Two satellite enthusiasts are claiming a new QSO distance record with the SO50 satellite in a May 24th contact that covered 5,584 kilometers, the distance between Michigan and Northern Ireland. Joe KE9AJ notes on his QRZ.com page that he has long had a particular enthusiasm for extreme distance satellite QSOs. He and George MI0ILE were able to log one another and claim bragging rights to having beaten the previous record by 61 kilometers. That record was set in 2018 by Jerome F4DXV and Scott N1AIA between France and Maine. This is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG.
A final note, the nomination period for the 2023 Newsline Young Ham of the Year is closed, and we have a number of nominees for the judging committee to consider. We'll announce the winner in the coming weeks and present the 2023 Young Ham of the Year live on stage at the Huntsville Hamfest Saturday, August 19th in Huntsville, Alabama. And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news since 1976 at arnewsline.org. With Jim Dameron in 8TMW, Ed Durant, DD5LP, Patrick Clark, K8TAC, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now, here's the solar update from Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW.
We have an Earth-directed solar storm that's going to sideswipe Earth, and some more flare activity is on the way. Those stories and more in the news this week. Our sun finally picks up in activity this week as we take a look at our Earth-facing disk. We do have a lot of regions in Earth view, but we'll get back to those in a minute. Meanwhile, take a look at this big coronal hole that's been rotating in through the Earth strike zone. It's been sending us a little bit of fast wind, but that's not all that much news. If you take a look just to the east of that, however, do you see that big long filament? We've been following this filament all the way across the Earth-facing disk. We were thinking, it gave us a couple false starts. We were thinking it was going to launch, but finally on the 4th, watch it there. Whoosh! Do you see that? It looks like it's going to go west of Earth mainly, but because we have the fast wind from this coronal hole that's just to the west of that, it may actually deflect this solar storm into the path of Earth. So we could get a glancing blow sometime around the 7th. That's what the NASA models look like, but it's kind of hard to tell. We'll talk more about that later. Meanwhile, as we take a look at a couple of the regions in the south, we've got region 3323 and 3327. 7. These are big flare players, and we are watching them right now to see whether or not they're going to start really ramping up activity. Meanwhile, that solar flux is going to ramp up, and we've got more regions on the sun's far side that have yet to rotate into view. So it looks like finally we're going to have some chances for aurora and possibly big flares. Switching to our M-flare and radio blackout threat meter, as we take a look at the X-ray flux over the last week, we really haven't been getting that much activity. We have popped a couple big M-class flares back on June 1st and on June 2nd, but since then things have pretty much quieted down. You might have noticed though there's a lot less noise on the bands over the past few days, but this is not going to last. Radio blackouts are going to start coming back because we are having big flare players rotate back into Earth view, and expect that noise floor to ramp up and the solar flux also to ramp up near the end of the week. So amateur radio operators, just get ready. On Earth's day side, it's going to be a bit more lively. Switching to our solar storm conditions, over the past week, things have been reasonably quiet. We've been hovering between unsettled conditions to even quiet conditions at times. We have bumped up a couple times to active conditions for just a short while. One of them was back on June 1st, and this was basically due to some fast solar wind that really wasn't all that fast or all that effective. So aurora at high latitudes was kind of the name of the game, but nothing really down at mid latitudes. In fact, as we got this last little bump up from some fast solar wind from this coronal hole that's been passing through the Earth strike zone now, well, again, we've only had a tiny bit of active conditions, which brings aurora to high latitudes, but mid-latitude aurora photographers you've been kind of having to do without. However, you might get a chance here with this glancing blow from the solar storm. Not expecting all that much, but it could bump us up to active conditions, possibly minor storm conditions, if that fast wind blows this thing and deflects it more into Earth view, but we're just going to have to wait and see. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are anticipating that Earth-directed solar storm that's going to give us a glancing blow starting around midday on the 7th. So at high latitudes, NOAA's expecting minor storm conditions, but we have up to about a 20% chance of a major storm. Now, activity could easily start right at, like I said, midday on the 7th, and we could ramp up to about the 8th and then have aurora clear in through the 9th before things begin to settle down. So at high latitudes, it should be a good show. Now at mid latitudes, however, NOAA's only expecting unsettled conditions, but we do have up to about a 10% chance of a minor storm. Again, the main time will be right around the 8th, but things should not last nearly as long. So aurora photographers, if you're at mid latitudes, well, only if you're dedicated should you bother to chase. Switching to your solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, well, we do have quite a few active regions in Earth view, and that is boosting that solar flux. We are sitting in the 160s to 170s range, and this means good radio propagation on Earth's day side. The sad thing is that we do have moderate noise on the bands right now. In fact, NOAA's giving us about a 30% chance of M-class flares at an R1 to R2 level radio blackout, and as well as a 10% chance of X-class flares at an R3 level radio blackout. And these conditions will easily extend through the rest of the 5 days here and possibly into next week, because we have even more big flare players that are going to rotate into Earth view. So amateur radio operators and emergency responders, you're going to have to deal with periodic disruptions on Earth's day side on the bands with these radio blackouts. And if you are a GPS user, just understand, especially near dawn and near dusk, anywhere in that region, you can get GPS disruptions as well from these radio blackouts. So the space weather this week is definitely picking up in activity. We do have a partly Earth-directed solar storm that looks to graze Earth to the west about midday on the 7th. So aurora photographers, if you're at high latitudes, you definitely could get a show. Aurora photographers at mid-latitudes, well, only if you're dedicated should you chase. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, we do have a couple big flare players in Earth view. These are regions 3323 and 3327, and these regions are do have big flare potential, so we could be seeing more radio blackouts here over this next week, but with moderate noise on the bands, at least your radio propagation is staying in the good range because solar flux continues to be high. And now GPS users, well, things aren't too bad for you. We have some radio blackouts that could give you some issues, especially near dawn and near dusk. And we also have a little bit of aurora, but that aurora should kind of stay up at high latitudes. So overall, things should be pretty good. But this week, you definitely need to stay vigilant. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Dr. T. Always happy to have you part of the proceedings here. You need to follow her on Twitter, at Tamitha Skov. You saw it there on your screen. Same thing on YouTube. Tamitha Skov is her YouTube channel, and then spaceweatherwoman.com. You get to see, if you go on to her YouTube channel, you can see that full 10-minute report that I edited down. A lot more information about meteor showers. And of course, if you like to reflect your signal off of meteors, that's good information to have. And some cool stuff about the moon on there as well. So just a wealth of information, and we're just overjoyed to have her as part of the team. Also overjoyed to have as part of the team is the Cat in the Hat dude, the kit building editor for CQ Magazine, and arguably one of the most popular forum presenters at Dayton Hamvention and anywhere else. It's Joe Eisenberg, K0NEB, and my good friend.
Well, thank you very much, Don. And yes, I wore the hat again, and you might see the hat in Huntsville. I think I'm going to put that in my flight bag. So look forward to seeing everybody at the Huntsville Hamfest. We're going to keep mine a little brief tonight. Let me see if we can get the screen up. And here we go. What we're looking at is the Lincoln Amateur Radio Club Field Day here in Lincoln, Nebraska. Our call sign is K0KKV. So we always like to call ourselves King Kong's Vampires. So if you hear somebody saying K0 King Kong's Vampires, that's us, the Lincoln Amateur Radio Club. Our trailer is provided by the City County Emergency Management, as is our club antenna trailer. And the building in the background is actually where our club meets. We now have a permanent meeting site we've had for the last year at the airport in an area we call the Lincoln Air Park. Bad news is we can't fly drones. The good news is we already have permission for antennas. We are close enough that we're going to be in great shape when we have the Great Air Show at the end of August. We'll be able to watch it right from there. And we'll be helping out, of course, doing communications and helping people who have needs during the air show. So let's take a look here. That's a closer look at our emergency communications vehicle. There's a tent that you can't see that's behind that next to the building, and that has our GATA station on it. And in the trailer, we have 2 stations. And then, like I said, the little trailer carries our equipment and generators. And that's me. I'm usually on 20 meters. Single sideband, FT8 and FT4. Believe it or not, FT4 is very popular on field day because it gives you a lot faster exchanges. So that is our field need. Now take a look at that. That is what happens when the CW station comes on in the trailer. You'll see the CW on the lights in the trailer as it rectifies the RF. So that was kind of funny. And let me see if I can get that to go again. There we go. So you can see the CW on the lights. I couldn't hear it, but I could certainly see it. And I was looking up and thought, oh, I'll bet he's transmitting. So that is our CW station as well. Now, this is what my setup looks like. I'm using the 7300 and a headset, like Gordo mentioned, keeps the noise level down. And we are using Panasonic Toughbooks that I have revived. These are ones given up by a customer where I worked. And I reloaded them and set them all up for field day, and they are absolutely perfect for field day. This is one of my latest projects. I didn't know it was going to become a project until I read about it just after I ordered it. This is called a solder pot, okay? And a solder pot is basically a little bowl of melted solder, but it's heated, so it gets really, really hot. But this one had a problem I found out online. So before I started using it, I had to perform a little surgery on it. Took the 4 screws out of the bottom, and if you look there, you can see the ground wire hooked to that screw that's kind of on the left side. But if you look closely, look at the ground post. It's painted.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not going to work.
There's your problem, lady.
So it's actually would probably run, but if anything happened, all of a sudden the case would become hot at 110. So what I did was I took the screw off, and then I used the Dremel tool, and a real quick buzz with the Dremel tool cleaned it up nicely. And then I used a slightly different screw because the threads weren't very good on this either. And I put a nut underneath it so it holds it nice and tight. So now you have a much more secure ground connection. And so you got to be safe. Now, I had no idea it had this problem until somebody brought that to my attention just before I got it. So the ground connection is put together, and this is what a solder pot looks like. The bar on the left is going to fill the bowl, and that is a pound bar of 6337 solder. Now, you notice there's no flux with that, because when you're dealing with a solder pot, you don't want to heat up flux. If you need flux, you can dip your leads or whatever into a little bottle of liquid flux, which works. What we use a solder pot for is tinning wires. And also on certain kinds of enameled wire, it will boil off the insulation and tin the wire for you. And I got this because of the new kit that I got at Hamvention that has a lot of toroids, and it's got 11 toroids. But as I read the instructions, and keep note of this, Josh, if you get one of these, several of the toroids, you cannot tin the leads before you put them on the board, because there's not that much tolerance in the holes, and they warn you not to tin them. So I'll have to carefully clean the leads and then put them through. So I won't be able to use a solder pot on several of the toroids. But it's a real useful item to have, especially when you're working with wires and so forth, and makes wires much easier to solder onto terminals and so forth. This is a picture I showed last week. This is the QMX 5-band multi-mode transceiver kit that I got. If you look to the right, you'll see the QCX Mini, which is a 5-watt CW transceiver. And if you look to the left, it looks identical. And it is. It's the same size, same form factor and everything. The only difference is the markings on the case, and it has one extra hole. And the extra hole is for the microphone, because eventually when the firmware is updated, it will have single sideband capability as well as its current capabilities doing digital modes and CW. Now, the kit in the middle is the QDX. And so the QMX, which is the new one on the left, is kind of like merging the QDX digital transceiver and the CW transceiver on the right, making it all SDR and putting front panel controls on it. So I'm taking my time on this one because there's a lot of updates appearing online that give different hints and stuff to watch for when you're building it. I sorted the parts earlier today. And so you see, usually I always tell people put the resistors up front where you can get to them the easiest. And guess what? There are no resistors. Absolutely no resistors in this kit. And there's, I think, 16 capacitors, and then 4 transistors, and I think there's like 4 diodes and 4 RF chokes, but there are 11 toroids. And I would definitely say that this is not a beginner's kit. And I try to show kits at all different skill levels. And I will say again that this is not a beginner's kit. I would say that you should have some experience under your belt before you put this one together. But the parts are all sorted out and ready to go. And this is the circuit board. Now you say, well, that looks kind of weird. That's because I have not broken it apart yet. And I think there's 7 or 8 pieces that come out of that snap apart. And then you have to use an emery board or a small file to smooth that out. Otherwise, things will not slip together real well in that case because there's not a lot of tolerance in there. And so I was looking at it, and then I see there on the lower right, there's a little thing that says QRP Labs, and it's got a hole on it, and that comes off separately as well. And so when I was looking at what is that, because there's some little tiny pieces that you'll break off that are spacers that are needed for constructing the sandwich of the two boards. 2 main boards plus the control board plus your power board. And so I looked and I couldn't figure out what that was. And then the new revised diagram says the little thing that says QRP Labs in the lower right is a keychain fob. How about that? So that's kind of a cute little souvenir you get when you build the kit. But I still have to break all that carefully apart and then file off the stubs on those so everything is nice and smooth and fits together. That's a lot of stuff to cram into something that fits in the palm of your hand. And there are 11 toroids, including 2 binocular types and one that has 3 or 4 different taps in it, and a trifilar toroid, as well as I think 6 regular ones. So please, the other thing I would remind people is there is a USB-C connector on there. And they also caution you that the mounting tabs didn't get soldered all the way through because of the amount of heat that it drew away from the soldering process. So you also have to solder the tabs of the USB-C connector a little better to the board so that when you're plugging in the USB-C connector, it retains a strong physical as well as electrical connection to the ground plane of the circuit board. There's lots to do in putting that together. Like I said, there's not a huge parts count because a lot of it is actually on the bottom of that board as well. There are ICs on both sides. And not a beginner's kit, but we're going to have fun, and we're going to hope everything works out. And probably in a few weeks, we'll have a working multi-mode pocket-sized HF all-mode rig. So let's see there. And my final picture is this one. This was taken a month ago in Visalia at the International DX Convention in California. And I took this picture of Chip and Janet, and we'll miss Chip a lot. And
yes.
I did send her this photo and some of the others, and her reaction was, these are gems. These are real gems, the photos I sent. And she wants me to get out there on field day, and I told her I definitely will.
Absolutely. Well, when we all sign off tonight, it's going to be this.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Okay. When we sign off. All right. Thank you, Joe, for everything. Did you capture any questions, Josh? I didn't see any.
A lot of comments on the toroids,
yes,
the kit in
lots
general. Lots of good comments for you, Joe. You can go take a look at those with the chat room open, but not a ton of questions. I think everybody's just kind of anxious to see a build of it.
I think so too.
I think I had to do the QCX Mini in like 2 live streams, most of it, and I pre-wound those toroids because I was just not. I was not willing to do that live. That is not prime time television.
Nobody
I think
has
I'm going to do
patience
that
for that.
myself.
No.
I think I'm going to do that myself.
It's kind of like a cooking show where they have this stuff like prepped.
Exactly.
Like,
it's all staged.
Oh yeah. I do the mise en place of winding the toroids
Yeah.
beforehand because and those Joe mentioned it, but they're not your standard toroid. There's the binocular. There's one it's actually 3 sets that are tapped, and then there's
Yes.
one with the what do they call it when the wires are twisted together? That's another one that's in there.
A bifilar or
That's it.
trifilar.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This one is a trifilar.
Yeah, it's no joke. It's no joke
Well,
at
he
all.
said it's not a beginner's kit.
It's not a beginner's kit.
It is not a beginner's kit.
But
I just think the key fob deal is kind of cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
that little
Cute.
tiny corner of the board, you can put
That's
that on your
hilarious.
keychain.
That's hilarious.
I love it. Amanda, what
Yeah.
is we got field day coming up, right?
we do have field day coming up, and it's a big deal.
It's our
Like-
biggest event. It's our biggest
and
on-air ham radio event.
now we're all operating for chip, right? So
That's right.
Yeah.
we have bonus points that you can earn, and I with Joe sitting here, he's our kit guy, right? So it brings me up to one of our bonus. I'm going to talk about bonus points, everybody.
Yes.
So these are easy peasy bonus points, most of them. You don't have to do much work. But Joe, talking about kits, like kit building is an educational scenario. So if you do a kit building during your field day, you get 100 points. Guess what? Just that easy. You're going to have fun. You're going to hold a soldering iron. Let's hope you hold it the correct way and you don't smell like chicken. But
Yeah.
Don't smell the chicken.
yeah, you're going to get 100 points for that. So you sit down with your group and hang out for a half an hour, build a kit, or any other educational scenario. I mean, this is fantastic. All right, so let's go over some of the other bonus points we have. Emergency power. So this one is a little bit more difficult. This is where you're on emergency power. So you're on solar the whole time that you activate for 24 hours. But you get like triple the points. So that's a fantastic thing. Media. Oh my gosh, this one is so easy. All you do is take a script from the ARRL and excuse me, and they already have it made up for you. So you just fill in your points are where you are, what your location is, what your club is, and all of those things, and submit it to a newspaper or a television
press release.
station. Yes, a press release.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all you have to do. They don't even have to publish it, by the way, and you get 100 points. Public location. So, okay, this is fantastic. Most people will operate like in a parking lot, maybe a national forest. Anything that's public is 100 points. So that's fantastic. Some people do operate from their homes and such, so that's not going to be a public spot. A public information table. Do you know how hard this is? Seriously, people. You get a few brochures about amateur radio and what it does for everybody else. Excuse me.
Which you can
And
print from the ARRL website.
That's
by the way.
absolutely correct. All the brochures are free to download. You can also order them online. All you have to do is pay for shipping. It's $6.25. So it says, what is the ARRL? What is amateur radio? When all else fails, there's every single brochure there. And all you have to do is have a couple of those there, put a rock on them so they don't blow away, that kind of thing. But that's a PIO table. It would be best if you had an ambassador to be there to introduce themselves and to welcome newcomers that are like, what is this? What are all these antennas? But, you should have an ambassador. Definitely. That's just my recommendation. Oh, okay. So now we're going to get into I love this part. Radiograms. Messages to your section manager or to your section emergency coordinator, and 10 other messages to other people. So you get 100 points just for sending one to your section manager or your SEC. And then you get 10 points for each other message that you send, up to 10 messages. I know that sounds confusing, but think about it this way. Send one to me. Send one to Don. Send one to Josh. Those are all messages that count. So those are 10 points apiece. And you better send one to Gordo because he expects them. For darn sure.
I've gotten several. And
I have too. And it's really fun to receive them. And this test the importance is not about the points. The importance is that you're testing your skills and sending the messages. That's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
So I hope everyone realizes that. And when you look at a radiogram, it's like, it's overwhelming a little bit, but it's also fun. And your traffic leagues will help you out. So when you send those, definitely. Message handling, I think I already went over that. Satellite QSO. So this one's a little bit more difficult, but not as difficult as it used to be, because there's so many more satellites in the air, and you know where.
Above the air.
Yes, above the air. And there's so many more options to make a satellite contact, but you do want to have an expert. Don't go into this unknowingly, because it's pretty difficult. Come in with the right equipment and have fun with it. If you don't make the QSO, it's not a big deal, but remember, only one QSO. Don't tie up the airwaves with that. Alternate power. So this is an interesting one. Gordo will attest to this. Alternate power. So you make 5 QSOs on alternate power, and it could be solar. Gordo, people have used bicycles and
hand cranks.
Yes, hand cranks. Yes. They've had some pretty neat ways to make this happen. So I look forward to seeing pictures of what everyone's doing there. And then there's this one is so simple, everybody, and you have time and ahead of time. Copying the W1AW bulletin. That starts on Friday, so you can copy it on Friday, Saturday, and into Sunday. So make sure you do that. That's 100 points. We already went over the educational activity. Site visitation by an elected government official. Now that one's a little bit more difficult. You're going to have to put out some invites, and you better start now if you plan on getting those people to show up at your site. But definitely, I mean, it could be a city council person or a county commissioner, your sheriff. Your emergency manager actually does not count for this, by the way. I just want to let you know that. It's an elected official, so make sure you have that. And then the next is by a representative of an agency, and that's where your emergency manager would fall into play. So invite them, and you'll get 100 points if they show up. So GOTA, oh my gosh. I can't go on GOTA a whole lot because it would take like an hour. But it's true, right?
Yes.
Have a GOTA station. Let me tell you about GOTA. So you get 100 points for having the GOTA station. And then every kiddo that you have on GOTA gets you an extra bonus point. And then if they make 20 contacts per, you get extra points. Please read up on that because it's really convoluted. It's the hardest thing for me to follow. Okay. Web submission. Oh, that one's so easy. You just you submit via web versus mail. So that's an extra 50 points. Field day youth participation, 20-point bonus for every youth that shows up. So you better go to the Boy Scout camps and get them over there, or Girl Scouts, and get them to come visit your site and get them all on the air. That would be really fun. And you get 20 points per. So that's a lot of points, by the way. Social media. This is so easy. All you have to do is tweet or put on Facebook, having fun at field day, hashtag, that kind of thing. There's one that's really important, though, and I'm not going to stress enough about this, and Gordo's going to talk about it in 2 weeks. You're a safety officer. This is not a joke. We don't take this lightly. You don't just elect a safety officer. They actually need to do their job and make sure that you're hanging up antennas correctly, that you're wearing harnesses, hard hats, no fumes. Gordo, back me up on this.
Yes, no generators too close to an operating station or where onlookers will get smoked out.
Absolutely. And once again, Gordo's going to talk about this a lot in 2 weeks. And it is very important. And it's not only that, but do you know how many times I've walked through a field day camp at night and tripped over something and fell on my face?
Yeah.
Because
Not fun.
there's no lighting and I've been drinking.
Shocker.
It's true though. I mean, it's just not marked and it's just laying out there on the ground, and that's what happens. So anyhow, those are some of your bonus points, and I hope you all take advantage of that. And the other thing, just download the ARRL field day packet, and you can read all about how you can get all of those bonus points. So next thing I want to talk about is, don't forget, this weekend coming up is the VHF contest. Now, Gordo, I know you play a lot in that.
I do, and we're expecting some good tropospheric ducting conditions on both 2 meters, 222, 432, and higher. And even though you may be vertically polarized on 2 meters and 440 FM with a vertical antenna, if your rig has single sideband, many of the ICOM rigs also have SSB, the big rigs, switch over to SSB, and on 2 meters, go to 144.200. On 432, go to 432.100. And even though you're vertical and almost all of the weak signal ops are horizontal, give a shout out. And you should probably pick up maybe 5 or 10 stations on 2 meters, single sideband, upper sideband on 144.200, and on 432, upper sideband again, 432.100, and you might get 5 or 6 stations. So give it a try. It's fun.
Yeah.
Not
You won't
only
make
that-
any if you don't try.
That's right. Again, you don't know what you don't know.
And
You
6
just-
meters rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is-
I was going to
is
get
six
to that.
open. Is 6 open right now? Has it been?
Actually, it was
rocking?
earlier this evening.
Was it? Gordo, you going to be on 6, or you just going to do scatter?
No, I'm going to try and get on 6 as well. And absolutely 6 meters per short skip, maybe even some double hop. And as Dr. Scobe was indicating, we might have some enhanced band conditions for sporadic key.
Yeah. What
I'll
about
tell
you,
ya,
Josh?
If you want to improvise an antenna for 6 and all you have is like a wire HF antenna, if you've got an 80 meter antenna, 80 meter antennas, wire antennas work real good on 6,
They
especially
do?
off-center fed dipoles.
Oh,
My
yeah.
80 off-center fed dipole is a killer little antenna for 6.
We just made
Yes.
an 80-meter loop. Yeah, what do you think
Try
about
it.
that? Yeah,
All
we'll
right.
try it.
Gordo, what do you think?
Yep. Just load it up and see what happens.
Absolutely.
We had such a
And,
blast running
50
W1AW stroke 0. So Jeff got so pissed off. He was like, "Oh, screw it! I'm going to go out and make an 80-meter loop," and he did. In like
That's
half an
nice.
hour.
That's nice.
And 50.125 is the calling channel.
Yes.
If you start racking up a lot of people calling you, shift up to 50.135 just to leave the calling channel open. But
You're
50.125 is the spot to get started.
Joshy, what about you?
I'll actually mention where I'm going for field day because we're going to be doing a lot of 6 meters. I have the extreme honor of being able to go and spend a weekend on San Clemente Island.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
I'm doing their QSL cards.
And
Oh my gosh.
I
That's
will be
rare
operating
grid.
from DM03 for the entire weekend on 6 meters, and that's part of the reason why I built that gimbal, because I'm also taking it on the island to do satellite work.
What's their call sign?
Very
KA6 UKW?
I will get all that information for the next episode because we haven't decided if we're going to use a club call or what we're going to do, but there is a club
okay.
call. So
There is.
There is, yeah. So we'll be doing that. And it turns out that the gentleman that I'm going with has already been working with the folks that are chasing the Fred Fish Award. And so he already has a really nice 6-meter antenna. We're talking many elements on 6 meters.
Yeah.
So we
Wow.
are going to be we're going to be having some
You'll
fun.
be rocking.
We're going to be having some fun, let me tell you.
You'll
And
be
there's also a soda summit on the island, which some of us are going to do because Adam K6ARK is going with us. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of fun.
Oh gosh, you guys are
That's
gonna
a
have a lot
great
of
team.
IPAs packed in there.
Well,
Hilarity
it's
shall
owned by the
ensue.
Navy. The island's owned by the Navy, so I don't know if they're going to let us. And we got limited weight, so we got to be really careful with what we're trying to drag in there. We'll see though, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm even going to try and live stream. We're going to try. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I
Cool.
don't know if you'll have the connectivity for that, but okay. Well, that's what I had. Anyone else have anything else for the show tonight?
I'm done. I have to
Yes.
work the Saturday of field day, so I may try to get on Saturday
Aw.
evening and do some of Sunday
Yeah.
morning. But yeah, I have to work.
Be a 1 Delta. Yeah.
I may, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I'll get off work at 5 o'clock. I think either 5 or 6 on Saturday, so I could find a field day site somewhere to go
There you
to.
go. Yeah, hang out and
Try
have
that.
some. You gotta go. You go for the food more than you go for the contacts.
Mm-hmm.
Not me though. I'm competitive, so I will elbow people out to get to the radio. So
I love to operate on field day.
it's
Love
a fun time. It
Really
really
It's a
is.
lot of fun and great chance to show the public what we do.
It sure is, Joe. And that let's not forget about that. It's more about public showing than okay. I try to spit that out, but I'm still a competitive person, and I just want to win.
I love it when people get so worked up about, is it a contest? Is it not a contest? Who cares? It's whatever you
Whatever
want
you
it
want
to
it
be.
to be, right.
That's right.
It's a fun time. And that's it. There's a lot of clubs I know that they get together. They don't make a lot of contacts, but I bet they have a lot of fun. They cook a lot of
Right.
food. They enjoy each other's company. It's one weekend a year where all hams can get on the air if they want to in the field. That's the
Yep.
point. That's it. If you want to make it a big
Yep.
thing, you can. If you don't, you don't have to. Just have fun.
That's right. I
That-
mean, you got these 12 alphas, and then you have a 1 alpha, and there's 1 or 2 operators, and they're having a fun time, and they're not going to be on the air very often. They're hunting and pecking, and then there's the others that are going to hold a frequency for the next 24 hours. So like the Ronald Reagan Library, things like that. So
Yeah, absolutely.
it's what you make of it.
Exactly.
I do recommend you have a plan, though. Trust me when I say
Oh,
this.
yes.
Even if you're not getting competitive with the points, lay out everything you plan on using, beforehand. Make sure you check it out. Gordo's done his part here to help you with the coax, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes in your kit, so make sure you focus on that, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, everyone, we're going to
Yes.
talk more about planning and field day in 2 weeks. So, and last minute buys maybe. So we'll see what goes on there. And okay, we're done.
What about
We got nets.
Yeah.
We got nets. Let's see, where am I at? Who am I? Sorry, wrong screen. I have 3 screens here, everybody. In case if you think I'm eye rolling you, it's not. I'm not eye rolling you. I just looking at my
This
second
time.
screen. Okay, now am I rolling?
Okay, thanks.
Now roll.
I'm used to that.
Roll on.
All right. Oh gosh, I really hurt my shoulder tonight. D-Star 14 Charlie. We got Kevin KC7 FPF, who's awesome. Kev every day. 40 meters 7192, and K7 UDI, who I believe is probably on 20 meters now at 14268. So make sure you get on there. Tell them they're awesome. Tell them they're rock stars and that they've been doing this for I think they've been doing it longer than I've been doing it. So,
Long time.
a long time.
Week
All
in,
right.
week out.
We appreciate them for sure. All right, Josh, thank you so much for what you do.
Well, thank you all for being on here and having fun with me. So I think that's going to be it for us. So 2 weeks, we're going to be
Think
talking
so.
more about field day. This is, here's your homework. We don't usually do this. This is supposed to be just a fun show. But here's your homework. Figure out what you're going to do for field day, and then maybe, start writing a little list and checking it twice as you go around your ham shack pulling parts and putting things in bags, right? If you weren't thinking of doing field day and maybe you don't have the gear yet, go use the little online locator that's on the ARRL website for where people will be doing field day.
Yeah.
Maybe plan a day where you hit up 3 of them. We did that a couple years. I was going to a wedding.
Fun.
I went to a wedding one year. I was both in the ceremony and then there was the reception. I had ham radio in the car, so I was doing contacts back and forth. But we stopped by like 2 or 3 field days in between the events, and I was walking around with a tuxedo at the field day events. It was great. Go to different field days, explore. Yeah.
Oh, and not to mention, I'm a section manager. It doesn't say what section manager you have to send a message to. So, you get 100 points for sending me a message.
There you go.
Well, we'll see you again in 2 weeks, everybody. Until we talk to you, 73. See ya.
73, everybody.
73.
All right. Now I got to start building that gimbal. Or no, the gimbal's done. I need the software to work now. That's the next step.
What is the software about?
So SAT PC32, which is sold by AMSAT. It's okay. Or it's made by another developer. It's okay, but it's got problems. So I'm going to be moving over to Ham Radio Deluxe.
Can I ask you, are you using the paid version of HRD or?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know. Oh.
We know the mics are hot, everybody. This is our way of saying bye-bye.